How's the team responding this week for a big road trip?
Yeah, it's been a good week of practice. Practice hard, and now we got 2 more days. Put the final mental preparations on the game, but business as usual.
This is obviously a wounded animal at 0-4, but what are the dangers of facing sometimes a team like that?
Well, they're getting better every week. They got really good athletes. They got good coaches. I mean, this team will continue to get better. It's not about them. It's about us. I mean, it always is. Same message. And so, the guys work hard and stay focused. That's what we want them to do.
Coach, any similarities when you had Jake as a true freshman quarterback and they're trying to work through trying to get him to develop as fast as possible?
That's hard for me to answer. I don't know about their situation. We just study their tape, what they're doing, and we just worry about ourselves and kind of go from there.
Can you talk a little bit about what it was like to have a true freshman quarterback playing at that high level and getting him going every week and developing him?
Yeah, I think Jake did a good job. There's some, I've said that from the start. I mean, what that kid did for us from the very start, it's a lot different than high school. That I've always been, so impressed with what we were able to give him and how he did.
Chris, Aaron Fuller's on pace to put up some pretty big numbers this year. Have you kind of seen him emerge as a leader, not just on the field, but also off the field also?
Yeah, he's one of the guys that we're working with to try to bring some leadership qualities to the table. He's a quiet guy. Mm-hmm. He really leads by, his example and work ethic, which he's done. Everybody could feel that in the off season. Everybody's kind of going through the grind right now and doing the same things, but I think he made a lot of strides in the off season with his teammates.
Yeah, and Matt Lubick is a guy that we don't talk about a lot that we probably should talk about. What kind of impact has he had on that group since he showed up?
Yeah, I think that, you guys see it every week. Those guys are playing at a good level and catching the ball and attacking the ball. And it's nice to, see what he's been doing with those guys. And there's quite a few guys in the mix. And, he does a nice job of sharing reps, which is easier said than done sometimes.
What kind of step did the passing game take last week, do you think?
Well, I think it's always starts with pass protection. And so that was pretty clean. And, we say it every single week when Jake can sit back there and set his feet, the game changes for us.
Miles Bryant going from walk-on to the second leading tackler on your team. Is that a lesson you can show everybody else for the fortitude, just stay with the program?
Yeah. I don't ever think of the guys I don't care where they come from. It doesn't matter if they're a scholarship guy or not. If they join that locker room, they're one of us. And half the guys don't even know who a walk-on is or who isn't. And that's how we think of Miles. He's just played at a high level since the second he got here. And has continued to progress. He's another guy that's, just leads by example and in a really, really cool way, because that guy does not miss a day where he's giving his best effort.
When you go down to a place like LA, a lot of kids on the roster from that area, do you ever have to kind of guard against kids like that getting too fired up to play in front of their family and friends?
Yeah. It's always the same. Like I said earlier in the week, whether we're going into Utah, we got Utah guys, or going into Arizona. It's an exciting time. I'm more excited to go down there and let all those high school players that we like down there, see what we're all about. Mm-hmm. And, so it's always good we go to LA.
Is Friday night an important recruiting night for you guys, just coaches to maybe get out and see some of these guys?
We'll be out and see some games, and we've watched these guys for a long time. To see some of these guys in person.
And in a perfect world, would you like to get down to LA more frequently to play, USC or UCLA? It's been so infrequent the last handful of years, just like you said. There's such a important recruiting base for you guys.
Yeah, I think everybody tries to do that, but the way it's set up, I think it's it's every other year basically for the teams in the north, and it is what it is.
Chris, I think you were asked this on Monday, and I apologize for asking it again. But
you probably asked it.
I did not ask it. How much has Chip's offense changed, the one that we're seeing now versus the one that we saw at Oregon?
Yeah. I haven't really studied that, how many years ago he was at Oregon. So I don't know. We just study what we see on tape for these last 4 or 5 games and try to make a plan from there. Mm-hmm. And so that's really the best way I can answer that.
How unique is this offense versus what you've seen so far this year?
Well, we've seen elements of all of it. Mm-hmm. You get deep enough into the season and you see, we've seen that concept, we've seen that run scheme, those type of things. So we've seen a lot of that. But he's a creative coach, and they every week have a new plan of how to put a couple packages together. That is consistent. So what that is, we'll have to adjust game time.
And the numbers show, I won't say stats, but the numbers show that Savon Ahmed has taken maybe a bit of a step in the last couple games. Is that a fair assessment?
I think he's always going to, play good and play at a high level. The fair assessment is, I think, when our O-line blocks good, those running backs are going to get some things done. And, you get it started for those running backs or even some of our receivers. You get the play started, they can make some things happen.
How is Hunter Bryant doing? Is there a chance we could see him play this year?
Yeah, there's a chance. He's doing really well. And so we're just kind of on the same plan that we have been all season long. We said early on there's a chance he could play at the end of the year, and we're on track.
Coach, how's Austin Joyner coming along?
Yeah, he's work in progress, still figuring out his whole situation.
You and Chip had some history before.
Yeah.
What was your reaction this winter when you heard he was coming back to the Pac-12?
Well, I think we got another really good coach. That he'll have coaches on his staff that have a real familiarity with this league, recruiting, all those things. I mean, I know he's one of the best coaches around. And
Is it a good thing for the Pac-12, you feel like?
No, I don't want good coaches. I'd like to play against bad coaches. So, that's what I think. But, probably in the big picture, I guess it is. I mean, the competition is always stiff and fierce. And, he's another guy that makes it hard on us.
With Hunter Bryant, is that purely dependent on him being healthy enough to play, or is there going to be some consideration late in the year about whether whether he's able to come back for 4 games, 5 games, right on that borderline?
We have our plan from the start. We plan to play him late, and as long as his health holds up, we're just sticking to that plan.
But speaking of that with the red shirts, if I had told you that none of the true guys had played in any FBS game so far, almost halfway through the season, what would you have thought? Not really as planned. There's a lot of stuff, how this thing goes. It's not as planned. It's still, we're not even halfway through yet. So that could change. It really could. And probably will change with the new rule down the road, so that may have altered our strategy a little bit. And like I said, we were going into things with eyes wide open, had kind of a plan, but we were just kind of feeling it week by week, and we're still doing that. We like to play the freshmen when they're ready to go, and build depth. It really helps us in the long run. But right now, that's kind of where we are, obviously. When you say week to week, what is the biggest consideration that you're thinking of at this
I
point?
think as soon as one of our key guys gets hurt, the depth changes dramatically. And so we're practicing a handful of young guys that are getting reps still, meaningful reps, not just on the scout team, that could turn into real reps with a snap of the fingers.
Is this the deepest running back room you think you've had since you've been here?
Well, I think we've always had some pretty good talent there, and you have to have it. And I know early when we got here, we had a couple guys dinged up, and it just feels so different. You're keeping your fingers crossed. I mean, we were really on thin ice. I know a couple games we played some guys that weren't totally healthy, and we just didn't have it. We've just, knock on wood, stayed relatively healthy there, and that can make it for a deep room.
Yeah,
It changes fast.
What kind of step is McGrew taking?
I think he always does a nice job every time we put him in there. It's hard sometimes in practice. A lot of other positions you can really see guys taking those steps, but sometimes you got to put those guys in the games to see what they're doing. We put him in; he makes yards.
Yeah. USA Today had their list of coaches' salaries and buyouts that came out the other day.
When are we putting the reporters' salaries in? So we can have this.
Do you want to know that? Really?
It's embarrassing.
Is it weird? Is it weird for you to have that stuff out in public and have people looking at all that?
I'm long past that.
Yeah.
That's the world that I live in.
Yeah.
I mean, everything you do, everybody's going to pay attention to, and so, it is what it is.
Do you feel any pressure being the highest paid guy in the
I
conference?
feel pressure every day of my life. I felt pressure. I never felt more pressure in my life than the very first game I coached as a UC Davis head coach, JV team against San Francisco City College, and I am saying this with an honest heart. With 300 people in the stands.
Wow.
I feel the same pressure I did then as I do now. I mean, that's how we do it. I mean, that's how our kids are. That's how we are. I mean, nobody can put more pressure on and care more about this than we do.
Yeah.
So the money doesn't change anything.
And I assume, just along those lines, there's no bigger critic of Chris Petersen than Chris Petersen. What do you think of the job you're doing so far?
And this whole program.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all we do is pick it apart and how do we make it better and how do I do a better job. And that's why sometimes it can be a depressing job because it's never right, you know, and I'm never there. I mean, we always are evolving, and you know, we walk that fine line. We trying to stay positive and pay attention to the good, but still improve, and that can be a slippery slope sometimes.
Is this part depressing?
Well, like you said, going back to your thing, you know, I coach football for free, and there's other things I do. I make a lot of money, and I just keep that in perspective. Assignments that I got to do.
Thanks, man.
Okay.
School started last